Hey, MMT followers, Christina Fuges with MoldMaking Technology back for another quick MMT chat. My guest today is Paul Coleman, who is the Learning and Program Development Specialist for the Work-Based Learning Consortium in Ontario, Canada. Hi, Paul.
Mouthful, isn't it?
That is a mouthful. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. All right, let's get into this. So, your programs for training mold maintenance and more recently CNC machining technicians really seem to be working wonders. We talk about less time, less money, great results. So, you got to share, like, how are you pulling that off while getting so many people certified and hired?
Um, it's really our blended learning and the way we present this. Traditional learning and training on the job takes a long time.
Hmm.
They don't have the tools, they don't have the time to train people. Um, we train trainers as part of our program. So we will, people get promoted to a training position and they just because they were good at their job. And
Hmm.
that's great because they have a lot of knowledge to expound to people, but they don't necessarily, they've never been trained to be trainers.
Yeah.
So we have a technical training effectiveness program that we have that we takes them through and teaches them how to train. Um, we also give them a blueprint for what the students are learning through our e-learning program. So maybe I should step back
Okay.
and explain it. So they get signed up with our program. They go into our e-learning program first. And, so they're learning the basics, they're learning math, they're learning blueprint reading, they're learning all kinds of different, all the different topics that they need to go. So let's say in week 5, they're learning blueprint reading. Well, our blueprints may not match yours. We may do things a little differently. So in the trainer's blueprint, we call them shop floor assignments. They will know that, okay, this is the week that they're learning blueprints. So our suggestion to that trainer is lay out some of your blueprints, lay out some of your prints, or if you're doing it on the screen, show them how to navigate so that they're reinforcing what they're
Hmm.
learning with us, right? Um, right down to like how much time does a trainer have to sit down with somebody and tell them all the shop talk that they're going to pick up over a long period of time, right?
Yeah.
Somebody coming new to the trade's never heard of a thou,
Right.
right? So we spend time filling their brain with the whys and the little pieces that might not be they might not get right away.
I love that. That focus. I don't really hear people, we talk about soft skills a lot in terms of how to behave, how to dress, show up on time, but I haven't heard anybody talk about, we'll call it the culture, right?
Yeah,
Of manufacturing to fit in and to pick up on important facets right, of your job by, like you're saying, understanding common terminology that won't be so common to somebody new.
yeah, because we don't even realize that we talk differently at work,
Yeah.
right? We have different vernacular, we have different things the way we talk about things. And it takes a long time for somebody to even absorb all that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. And so they really feel foreign at work until they understand what people are talking about. And so, I mean, it comes right down to hand tools too.
Yep.
Um, you know, who hasn't told a newbie to go get the left-handed hammer,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So we give them an overview of all the types of tools they're going to be working with. We
Okay.
give them examples of how they work, um, all that kind of stuff. So they go through the e-learning. The technical trainers are reinforcing it with stuff that's real at their shop. We've had people ask us before they sign on to the program, well, my trainers don't have time to go through all this in 12 weeks and spend all this time with the trainees, but it's actually the opposite we found
Hmm.
that because we're giving the trainers a blueprint, they already know what they're going to teach them that week. They're actually because they're going to spend time with them anyway,
Right.
right? So now they're reinforcing what they're learning. It just is a really good system, and they don't have to come up with a lesson plan or sit there and say, okay, this is your job for the day and teach them because it just fits.
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah.
I like
Um,
that. Go ahead.
we also do something a little different too. We have the e-learning, but then we have e-instruction. So once a week, the students log in and they have a class with me or one of our other instructors. Why do we do that? Well, e-learning is excellent, because you can do it whenever you want, but it's also a big challenge because people won't do it if they're not dedicated and setting aside a time. So by having a weekly class where we're going to fill in some of the whys, one of my favorite ones when we're doing hand tools is we'll pull up a digital caliper and we'll actually show them some other tricks and tips. And like, I can't believe how many people never knew why there's a little the end for the depth part of a caliper, there's a little cutaway,
Oh,
and
okay.
people don't know what it's for. People have been using it for years, sometimes don't know what it's for. So filling in those kind of little gaps and having those
Interesting.
discussions, having it keeps them on track. It makes sure that they've done the work in the e-learning before the class, because otherwise they can't. They're going to be behind, and it so it keeps everybody on track. Make sure everybody's on week 5 when they should be on week 5, and makes them more accountable. Because if you're sitting in a class with 10 people and I start asking questions about the material, you don't want to be the one that says, "Oh, I didn't do it this week," or
Yeah,
"I'm
exactly. I
2
like
weeks behind."
accountability. And accountability is a skill, is an employment skill in and of itself.
Oh, absolutely. And when we're talking about a 12-week program, people have to be accountable. We have to keep them on track.
Yeah. All right, talk to me a little bit more specifically about the CNC program.
Okay, so that's our current offering that we're doing in Canada right now. We have funding to hire and train up to 200 CNC machinists.
Oh,
So
nice.
we're looking for employers that either want to upskill or they want to hire a new CNC machinist, and we'll put them through the program. Same as like the mold making program. It's got e-learning, it's got the technical trainer, and it's a 12-week program that takes somebody from 0 to CNC machinist level 1. And it's been very successful. We had a pilot program of it already where we trained 40 or 50.
Nice.
And the government liked it so much that they renewed our funding, and now we have funding for 200.
Wow,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah,
How
we're
people
excited
just
about
reached
it.
out to you?
Yep, they just reach out to us and we can tell them the process.
That's fantastic. Everyone talks a lot too about AI tools and how to incorporate that even the manufacturing process, right? In design. Well, how are you incorporating it in training and education? And how are you able then to keep stuff safe too? Because there's a big issue with information and keeping that safe.
Yeah. If you're looking at AI, my advice would be to do your research, keep an eye on the data privacy policies. Um, there's some of them out there. I could give you names of them. Like
Right.
I know Cloud has a really good data privacy policy right now, but tomorrow it could change.
That's true.
So you really have to watch, right? They've made, statements that they won't learn from your data. So if that's important to you, then pay for the subscription, because even Google's offering, I believe, um, you have to go to the paid model in order to have that be able to
Yes.
switch. So
You
just
got to
know
do
what
your
you're getting
research.
into.
All right.
The other thing is fact check everything. AI is not a replacement for an SME.
Mhm.
We still have SMEs. I wouldn't, we would never consider developing a program without one, because AI can pull from different industries
Yeah.
because it sounds like it's right, and it does get stuff wrong. We don't use it to develop content. We'll use it for a number of things. I love it for testing quiz development,
Okay.
because when you're really close to the content you're developing, it's hard to come up with good questions. Or the hardest thing for me is to come up with wrong multiple choice answers that are logical and that aren't too obvious, right?
Right.
Because you're just, like I said, you're too close to the content.
Yep.
So AI is a really good job of giving me, quiz answers that are not right, and then
Oh,
you still have to
fun.
check them. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it works out really well that way. Um, One of the other things we use it for is um, we have to be cognizant of English as a second language in the trades today,
It's a
right?
reality. Yep.
It's huge, and goes back to that vernacular, right? We often talk in a way that is that you and I can understand each other because we've been in the trades for a while, um, and we don't even realize it.
Hmm.
So we will put our stuff through, and we can say exactly that. Reword this for me for an ESL
Yeah.
student, and then we can look at what we wrote, what they wrote, and then come up with something on our own because it really points out where maybe we were, using too much shop talk too early in the program, or
Oh, what a time saver. Like that's a great way. That's a great tool that's a great way to use AI as a tool though.
yep. And summaries too. Like if you want to do
Yep.
a summary at the beginning, like you go back to the beginning, here's what you're going to learn in this.
Yep.
It can parse all that data and give
Yeah.
it back
I
to you
do
in
think
grade.
it's, yeah, I think it's very good at if you're not writing something from scratch, which in my industry we would never do that, but giving it the content if you feel that it's safe to put it up there, right? Yeah, and
Yep.
have it pull out, right? And make summaries or make that social media post. Like it's a lot, it is a time saver as long as
Oh
it's
yeah.
it's got the content that you want it to work from, not hallucinate as they, or add things that
Yeah.
are inappropriate. And you don't want
And
to add to your workload.
I get that people are nervous of it, but it's a tool.
Hmm.
It's a really good tool if you know
Yeah.
how to use it right.
Yeah.
And you check the data privacy policies.
Yep.
And I think we all have a pretty high opinion of our data, like what we know, and we want to hold on to it. How much of it is unique?
Hmm.
Maybe keep the stuff that's really unique that you do
Yep.
out if you're worried about it.
It is true. Actually, it presents an opportunity to really look at your operation and your data and to analyze it, to see what actually is important, to kind of assess it. Because maybe you're afraid for no real reason, and you're holding yourself back from progressing. It is interesting. All right, so WBLC is a Canadian program. And I
Yes.
know your mission here is you're looking at bringing this to the United States.
Yep.
So, what's exciting about that? And what challenges are you facing to trying to make that happen?
So in Canada, we're very blessed um, in the way the government funds education. Um, they are very proactive and they'll fund stuff like what we do. So the stuff we do in Canada, um, it's at no cost to employers.
That
And
helps.
yeah, it really does,
Right?
right? Um, it makes it challenging um, in Canada to have paid training content because everybody is so used to getting free
Mhm.
training. Um, we're not experts in the US. We know our market. So I don't know how that is going to work. I don't know what the appetite is.
Okay.
Um, so we're looking for, some partners that are familiar with the market. Also, our approach is unique. Our e-learning is excellent. It's robust. It's really good content. So if somebody wanted to lease just the e-learning and offer that portion of it, it would work. But I know in my heart, I know that the way we do it, the blended learning, the e-learning, the e-instruction classes, the taking the time to train the trainer.
Yep.
And we have mentors that work with the trainers too, that they call them once a week and ask how things are going. And
Nice.
like they make sure everything is progressing over this 12-week period. To do this successfully in a very compressed, 12-week period takes effort,
Yep.
right? It takes effort from us, it takes effort from the company, the commitment from the company. So it has to be a partner that would be, if they want the success we're doing, they would have to commit to that. And we could mentor them along the way and show them how we do it.
Of
And
course.
we could also, offer it if they wanted to. It's just we would need an organization that uh, could scale us up, could help us scale to the US market.
Got it. So when you say partner, is there a particular type of company or organization that you are looking for to start this with?
Um, Associations
Okay.
would be great um, if they have um, the appetite for it.
Yep.
SME Association, American Association Mole Builders,
Yep.
uh, people like that. Um, but I really don't know. It's possible that there's an online college or university, a trades college over there that would be willing to scale this up.
Yeah,
It'd
there's
be perfect.
definitely, I mean, if you watched or read any of the stuff I've been talking about for the past year within mold making specifically, it's a big issue. And there is a lack of curriculum out there to educate current people, people that want to cross train next generation. So there's definitely a need. And I think your approach is unique. This is a great opportunity just to get the conversation started and maybe make connections from this conversation with people that can take this further with you. And if the mold making technology in any way can help make that connection, that's what we're here for. Because if there's no next generation or there's no education with people that are working within the field today, what does it matter what technology is developed if we can't get the people trained up? So, yeah.
And
So I,
we're losing senior knowledge
yes,
so
yes,
fast. And if we
yep,
rely on, people that with 4 years experience training new people,
yes.
you've lost so much that makes us experts.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so let's jump to what is probably more of a passion project for you,
Mhm.
but it's this neurodivergent population of getting those types of people with those types of challenges into manufacturing jobs. So when people, in my opinion, talk about inclusivity and being more diverse, we don't think about people like that. There's a lot of different pockets of the population. We're still looking at that same traditional worker. And this is one of those people. These are people that have skills, commitment, passion to offer that they might not be looking for. So talk to me a little bit about where that comes from with you and under what umbrella is this happening?
Okay. So I'm late diagnosed ADHD. I have a son with autism, and I have three daughters that are diagnosed and medicated with ADHD. So I come from a voice of experience. Um, I struggled growing up because I was not diagnosed. I I look at report cards. I found some old report cards from when I was young. Like, Paul
Uh-oh.
doesn't know how to pay attention. Paul, only works
Mm,
under pressure. And it's like a blueprint for an ADHD diagnosis.
yeah, right.
But nobody told me that, and I struggled with it growing up. Um, and so I don't want to see anybody go through the struggles that I had because I questioned my intelligence.
Oh,
I
right.
questioned my abilities. Um, I don't want to see anybody have to do that. So I'm really thankful in this day and age that my kids were able to be diagnosed. They're medicated, they've learned a lot of more coping mechanisms
Yep.
that they had to mask.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so it's a real heart project for me. Um, so it's a big education piece. Um, I think the one of the big things is that people need to understand, and it's getting better. Like it's not like it used to be, but neurodivergent and people with learning differences differ from people with cognitive delays. I mean, there's even organizations out there that will talk about learning differences and neurodivergence, and they'll have somebody representing, like a stock image they've picked,
Okay.
and it's somebody with Down syndrome or somebody with,
Aha.
who has cognitive delays,
Yep.
and it's just different, right? And so getting that education out to people that, somebody with dyslexia or processing disorders, they're not mentally challenged. They can learn, they just learn differently.
Yep.
They can be extremely smart. And,
Yep.
like we talk about, well, I'm a kinesthetic learner and I'm a visual learner.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's all part of it, right? And
Yep.
it's an education piece. Um, we know that, like, that now people have, um, in school, they have, I'm losing the word, accommodations
Oh yeah. Yep.
for different things.
Absolutely.
So it's getting a lot better. That is not translated down to the trades yet.
No, no.
And I'll give you, if you have a minute, I'll give you an
Yeah.
example.
Give me an
I
example.
I have a really good friend. He's an excellent framer. He's in construction. He's a framer, one of the best. Just excellent. Knows his stuff. Um, it took him 10 tries to pass his exam to get his papers. And I just thank God he didn't give up.
Yeah.
because it wasn't that he didn't know the material. It's just that it's all written.
Yeah,
The exams, the
exactly.
tests are all written. If somebody had been able to ask him the questions, or he's allowed to answer verbally, or you know, he probably would have passed his first time.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just one story. I know all kinds of
Oh,
stories
there's
like this
so
through
many.
through this.
And it's very layered because depending on the maturity of the person or what you're talking about, they might not even know, much like you, that that is a problem. You just need to communicate, well, I'm not good at test taking. Can I, written, can I take it orally, right? Or do it visually for me. But if they, so there's people that don't even know that's a problem. And then there's the ones that do know, but maybe are afraid to communicate that because there's no accommodation or assistance or understanding. So it is definitely still, as much as it's tolerated, like I have a son with Williams syndrome. So and he's got some learning disabilities. But to see that his generation is so much more tolerant, right, and accepting
Yeah,
of those populations more so than our generation, but it's still got a long way to go because it's they've gotten so far, but then it still stops. And they still lump them all together, kind of like what you're saying. You can't
yeah,
lump Williams syndrome even with Down syndrome or somebody that's neurodivergent. But I still think the general population, they hear that word and they're lumping it all together. So they're fearful of it. They're afraid because they don't know. So just as you're talking about training the trainer in trade skills, right? Someone that is not neurodivergent, that same philosophy, you have to train the businesses to understand the differences in those populations and how they can take on these people that probably have the skills. You just need to talk to them and understand and accommodate.
yeah.
It's
So
that simple and that difficult at the same time.
that leads well into talking about Spiro.
Okay.
So,
Yep.
I work at WBLC, develop their content, and work as one of their e-instructors. And my passion for neurodivergence and everything also feeds through to the fact that all of our training is video. We make sure it's closed captioned. We make sure that there's animations and pictures and reading. Like
Yep.
it's narrated, so it's all there, right? We want to make sure that that's inclusive. And that um, through my work with them, I was introduced to Spiro Careers Canada, and that's their goal. Their goal is to educate um, companies and start having conversations about neurodivergency, and how we can be more inclusive in our hiring processes, in our marketing and our training,
Yep.
filling training gaps. A lot of people think when they think autistic, somebody who is autistic, that they're a programmer, they're going to be a computer programmer. Um, but the diversity within the autistic
Yeah.
people
The
who are autistic,
spectrum, right? It's a spectrum for a reason, right?
yeah, but I mean, it's even somebody on the same level of the spectrum, let's say,
Okay.
could really like to work with their hands and would be excellent in an assembly job, right? They don't
Yeah.
want to sit behind a computer.
Right.
So it's the social interactions, the different things that are challenges for neurodivergent people and autistic people, uh, doesn't mean that they're going to be cookie cuttered into one type of job. So it's not just Google who could hire all the autistic people,
Right. Exactly.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
So there's plenty of
Exactly.
people that are autistic who would make excellent mold makers.
Yeah, I agree. So, what do you think the key is right now with Spiro? What is their strategy? How are they doing this?
So it all starts with a conversation, because every organization is at a different level in their inclusiveness, um, especially when it comes to neurodivergent people. You hit it on your head that you can't just talk about inclusiveness because that's such a broad
Hmm.
umbrella in today's society. What does
Yep.
that mean? It can be all kinds of different
All kinds
things.
of things.
But when we're talking about like neurodivergence and learning differences, we don't at Spirit, we don't use like a cookie cutter solution, right? We have a conversation because we look at what that organization needs are, where they're at on their inclusivity journey. We'll talk about maybe they have they don't know how to hire or whatever. A good example is looking at the ads you have on Indeed or whatever. Um, a lot of people who are artistic take things very literally.
Yes.
So as an HR person, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to list my dream person, right? I'm going to list everything that I would want in a person. Well, somebody who isn't neurodivergent would go, well, hey, I checked 70% of those boxes. I'm going to apply,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But as somebody who takes things very literally, I'm going to look at that and go, I can't fit,
Yeah. That's a
right?
great
So,
example. Yes. That's a great, and they'll write themselves off.
yeah. Shop tours are another one. Somebody who is neurodivergent is very sensitive to smells or noise
Mm-hmm.
may not be a great fit for putting on a shop floor that's
Yep.
really loud and like a lot of clanging and banging.
Yep.
So take them on a shop tour early in the hiring process, right? Let them see and experience the smell of the cutting fluid and everything. If it's not a fit, it's not a fit. You can't put a square peg in a round hole.
Right.
But maybe that person would be excellent in design or in some other aspect of the business, right?
Yeah.
But work with that and understand.
I love it. So I love your passion for you're hitting the nail on the head with a very important issue that's not going away. So I want people out there to get in touch with you. I'll provide links to talk about WBLC and to see what we can do on whether it's in Canada or we start bringing that blended learning into the US and to get employers and companies and manufacturing to start thinking about a diverse population. And we're talking about neurodivergent. And like you said, starting to have conversations and to understand. Because nowadays, everybody knows somebody. It's unbelievable. So even if they're in your life and you're not even thinking about manufacturing, spend some time with those people to see what makes them tick. And they're not, we really are all very similar. Right. It just takes a conversation to uncover how somebody's passions, how they learn, what they need. And if we need workers, we have to start considering all different types of people from different types of places. So thank you for everything you're doing, Paul. Thank you for sharing your insights and your perspectives. And let's keep in touch and we'll see where this goes.
Great. Thank you.
All right. And for everybody watching, remember for everything mold making, visit moldmakingtechnology.com. Stay informed and stay inspired.